these are some of the things that you will need to look at today during class. So I'm just showing them to you here. The revenue management spring 21 PowerPoint, same PowerPoint we've been going over before, but I'll be referring to three different pieces: the STAR market report, the booking pace chart, and the flow through example. So as I mentioned any of those things, this is where you find them on the main page, and I'll share them. But if you want to look at them separately, that's where they are available. So just know that to be true. Let's see, I'll move this down here, and then let's start with that PowerPoint. I'm going to back up just a little bit because there's some things I want to go over again from, maybe this is better over here, last week. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So when we talked about, now look, by the way, let's have a test. Yeah, let's have a test on Tuesday, 1 week from today. By test, you know what I mean, not an in-class test, but they'll be the same as we've done so far, an online one. So I will open it up on Tuesday, and I'll give you a bit of time to accomplish it. So just know that it's going to be opened up on Tuesday, and much of it is going to be about two areas that we've been talking about, and that's forecasting and revenue management. Know that there's a difference between these two things, right? And this is the kind of thing that managers use all the time. We call it managerial accounting because you are looking at past accounting documents and financial documents, and you are then using that information in order to make future decisions. That's what really managerial accounting is. Think about everything we've done up until now. When we've done a menu engineering worksheet, we've just said, what are the most profitable and popular items, and then we make changes in order for people to choose what we want them to choose, right, to maximize that piece. When we look at horizontal or vertical analyses, we're just saying, how are we doing compared to a standard last year, or our competitive set, right? Our competitors, or what our franchisor says, or what industry tells us how we should be doing in order to be profitable. And we just check, and then we make decisions to meet those standards more fully. So much of this really isn't about accounting. It's just about checking ourselves against standards and figuring out how to get closer or beating those standards. So when we talked about forecasting, what we're really doing, and we did this with Panera and a couple of other things, we look for trends, right? What has happened in the past, and the assumption is that if something, inertia tells us, do you remember that from physics? The idea of inertia, the idea that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion, that something is going to behave the way it's going to continue to behave the way it's behaving until something happens that indicates it's not going to behave that way anymore. You roll a ball, well, we know that friction works against the forward movement of that ball, and eventually the ball is going to stop simply because friction has been working against it. But if there is no friction, the ball goes forever, right? So if nothing is indicating that it's going to stop, then we assume if we keep going up or keep going down in volume or price or cost level, percentage, any of those sorts of things, there's nothing that will tell me that it should stop. So when we see a trend, we just assume that that trend is going to continue in the manner it is going. Remember one time we talked about the idea that we kept making more money than the year before, but in a slowing down fashion, right? Well, we just assume that next year we'll still make more money than we did the year before, but the idea that each year the amount we made over the prior year is starting to slow down. So if something is slowing down, we assume it's going to continue to slow down. If something is speeding up, we assume it's going to continue to accelerate or speed up. That's often what we're doing with forecasting. We're just taking a look at prior, and we are assuming that the trend will continue once we find that trend. Revenue management is something different. Revenue management is taking advantage of that forecast. Now that we understand how things are behaving, we can raise or lower prices in response to what we think is going to happen. Simple supply and demand tells me that if I have the same supply of something and demand rises, that each of those things, those units, the pieces of supply become more valuable, so I can start raising prices, right? Do not sneak in. Come in at full pace. Come on, quickly, please. Sometimes people think, and I appreciate it, that sneaking in or going slowly is better. It isn't. It's just let's move it in. Also, it's like being in a crosswalk, and sometimes when somebody's at a crosswalk, not at a crosswalk, but they want to cross the street, crosswalk, you have to stop. Full pace. Thank you. Sometimes people get it. I was just saying, pace. That sometimes people think that coming in slowly is better, but it's better just to come in, have a seat, and do it. And I was talking about the same idea that when you see somebody standing by the side of the road, looking to cross the street, and they're not at a crosswalk, some people still sort of slow down and go, but it's faster for everybody if you simply, if there's nobody behind you, go at the full pace, let them cross. Sometimes by slowing down, it's longer for everybody. So if you're going to come in late to it, just come in confidently, have a seat, be in, go, good. That is for anything, by the way, not just at school, but like in a meeting or whatever in the future, because you're actually drawing more attention to yourself. By the way, I was told that by somebody once, and I never forgot it. That's why I'm passing it on to you, because I think it's important information. I'm not angry. I hope I don't seem angry. I always seem angry. You're good, because sometimes I seem angry when I'm not. Thank you. So we're talking about the difference, by the way, between forecasting and revenue management. Forecasting is looking at the past, looking for trends. Revenue management is taking advantage of those trends by raising and lowering prices, either to stimulate or slow down sales, in a sense. So remember the difference between those two things. When we're talking about establishing room rates, we really talked about the fact that it's often about opening and closing different discounts, right? And by the way, this isn't just room rates, it's all sorts of things that we discount at different levels during different times of the year in order to either stimulate or not suppress sales, but know that if so many people are purchasing something right at this time, I typically raise the price a little bit in order to take advantage of the fact that many people want this product right now. In other parts of the year, people are not purchasing certain products. In this case, we're using room rates. That's when we lower prices. So the idea of sales that go on, we talked about the idea of a Black Friday or President's Week, such a car sales or mattress sales or whatever it is. We've taken a time period where demand is typically low, and we've lowered prices during this specific time period, created an event out of it in order to stimulate sales by lowering prices and making it seem like it's some sort of gift. During other times of the year, when people are naturally buying these items and these products, we do not discount during that time period. Same thing with hotels. It's fairly basic principle of economics, but this is how we do it in the hotel industry. But we can apply this across industries as well. So when the supply is constant, let's just take a look at this idea. I just said it. Let's keep moving because there's a specific page I want to get to. We've talked about all of these, by the way, so you should know all these for the test that I'm going to open up 1 week from today on Tuesday. Latecomers, 1 week from today, Tuesday. Remember these formulas. You're going to need them for homework I'm giving you tonight. We went through these twice, so I'm not going to go through them again today. I'm just catching up to a place where I want to be, and here it is. Great. So revenue and yield management employs these different tools. Remember we talked about forecasting demand to decide whether or not I'm going to use revenue management. Revenue management really means playing with prices in order to make the most money and still sell the most number of items. We call that RevPAR in the hotel industry. Not only is it that we sold this number of rooms, but we sold them at this price. Price times volume. So we take a look at our ADR, our rate that people purchase the item at, average daily rate, and we multiply that by our occupancy, how many rooms we sold, and we get a RevPAR. But we know there are different ways to get RevPAR, right? The same RevPAR. I can sell fewer rooms at a higher price and get the same RevPAR as if I was selling fewer rooms, but more rooms at a lower price, right? These two things, the price and the volume, can go up and down separately, and if I multiply them across, I still get the same RevPAR. We have to decide which way we want to go. Like on a night that I have a lot of groups in-house, I probably have a fairly low RevPAR, meaning I have sold more rooms, but at a much lower price. And I probably have a lower RevPAR than I would on a non-group night, but we have all this non-room revenue that we probably made, right? We had a lot of people in house who will drink at the bar and eat in the restaurant and shop in the gift shop and all these other revenue producing areas. So I can afford to F with my RevPAR a little bit because I know they're going to be spending in other parts of the hotel. Different hotels, different places have different business models based on their form of RevPAR. Some places sell very high-end product, but they don't sell a lot of it. A fur store. Do they still have fur stores? I imagine they do. Not that many. When I was a kid, there was a fur store. Every town had a fur store because everybody wore fur. But the idea is that you don't have to sell a lot of fur coats to make a crap load of money, right? So it's a very high-end item at a very low very few number have to be sold in order to make revenue because price times volume. If your price is high enough, your volume doesn't have to be that high. At a, what's an inexpensive type of brand of car, Emily? What's a?
Mercedes?
Well, that's a high end, that's an expensive type of car. I mean, just the opposite, an inexpensive type of car.
Oh, maybe like a Volkswagen.
Volkswagen, perfect. So, two German cars, right? Mercedes, a Mercedes dealership doesn't have to sell an enormous number of Mercedes to make the amount of revenue they need to make, right? Their volume is low, but their price is high. Volkswagen is different, right? They lower their prices in order to, we'll do it this way, they lower their prices in order to sell a lot. It's just a different business model. They both work, both can be very successful, but we know that there is raising and lowering prices, price times volume, in order to get the same thing. That's how we're looking at it with RevPAR in a hotel, but it's just that during certain times of the year, we lower our prices to sell a lot of rooms, and in other times of year, we know that we can sell fewer rooms at a very high price and make the same amount of money. Perfect time of year, I can sell all my rooms at a really high price, New Year's Eve, Times Square, every other year but this year, right? Got it? Cool. And then they talked about the idea of how to use your forecast. We'll talk about this a little bit more today. Remember, I think her name was Sarah, and she was a little avatar, and she talked about the idea of the basic way to approach it. When you know you're going to be, when you know you're going to have a room night, excuse me, when you have a date in the future that is typically very, very busy, very popular, you sell out, well, you raise your prices for that night. We know that, right? But then she talked about the idea of the shoulder seasons, the sort of like the low season, the shoulder season, those seasons where I'm not at 100% occupancy. And she simply said, just take a look at the past, look at your calendar dates, see those dates that you didn't sell out or didn't sell a lot of rooms. We call those distressed rooms in the industry. When I say a word like distressed rooms about 9 times probably so far during this course, you can bet you're going to see it somewhere on a test being used. Maybe not for vocabulary, but I'll just use it and expect you to know what it means. These rooms that I know I'm not going to sell at the regular price, they're distressed rooms. That's when I start to put out special promotions, start to lower prices, start to put out deals, and all these are different discount types that I make available for a certain period of time. That's all Sarah says. Raise and lower your prices, name it, give it a discount name for future dates when you don't think you're going to be very busy. That makes perfect sense. Then she said, well, it's not like every room is the same, and it's not like every guest is the same. So what she said for the better and best is, remember, we have different demographics, different types of guests staying with us at any different time. Every business has different types of consumers, and they shop in a different way. Now, often there are different types of properties for these folks. Do you know anybody who buys Christmas decorations after Christmas in preparation for next year's Christmas because they know they're super inexpensive during that time period? Or you probably do. Does anybody's family do this sort of thing? Yours did that, Paige? Right? Most folks don't, right? But you are a specific type of shopper, or maybe not you, but your family, right? You're like, this is the best. It makes perfect sense. But most people are just so tired of the idea of shopping by that point, they say, I'm going to pay full price, you know, on December 1st. To hell with it. But we know that there are certain types of shoppers that shop in a specific way. So we set up certain times of year for those shoppers. Same thing when we're looking at filling a hotel. It's typically never going to be just one type of guest that stays in the hotel. Let's think about certain different types of guests who might all be staying in a hotel at the same time, just like there might be different types of consumers shopping at a Macy's or whatever at the same time. There are things that are done in retail specifically to appeal to different types of shoppers, right? There is the sort of garage sale type of shopper. Let's go to this idea of Macy's real quick. There are garage sale type of shoppers. They're the same people who shop at Marshalls or that sort of thing. They're looking for some weird little interesting shiny object and they're drawn by it very, very quickly. Did you ever go to a department store? They're few and far between now, but they still exist certainly. And at the beginning of, as you go into the department store, there is typically just like a table. There was something interesting on it that seems like a good value, and it is for garage sale types. They go in, they find this interesting thing, because they went to shop just to shop. They didn't shop just to get something in particular, right? They like the fact of shopping. And they set it up very specifically so those types of people they'll be drawn to this, they'll look at it, but then they'll feel like they're in the way. This, in retail, it's called the butt brush. And if somebody has to like move by you this way, people go, oh, I'm in everybody's way. I haven't made a decision on this thing yet, so I will take it and I will buy it. I'm not ready to put it down yet. If I was able to look at this long enough, I might not even buy it. So we set it up in a way that you're like, I guess I'm buying this. I have it in my hand and I walk by and do that sort of thing, right? So there's that. At Walmart, for instance, they put the milk down at the end of the aisle, way in the back. This is for people who think they're going to go in and just buy one thing at Walmart. And you have to go all the way to the back because there's this big wall of milk back there. And on your way back from the milk, there's option, 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 option. And before you know it, you've purchased other things as well, right? So they set up a space specifically for certain types of consumers, demographic, segments. Hotels have segments as well. Let's think about it. There's the leisure travel, the independent leisure traveler. There's the independent business traveler. There is the group travel. Sometimes it's corporate group. Sometimes it's leisure group. And then there are other demographics that we sort of create. In the fall, we often have a group of senior travelers, right? Or during certain times of the year, we have sports teams, right? We have these different types of travelers, and we know that they purchase travel during certain times of the year. So if we can track when they are most likely to purchase travel, then that is when we raise or lower prices specifically for that group, even if they're all purchasing for the same date. Let me show you something that will help. For people at home, I am going to open up, I think, what I call booking pace chart. So if you're following, I hope you're following on. If not, well, I've given up. The booking pace chart is here. Booking pace chart, booking pace trends, and it should look like this if anybody wants to take a look at it as well. And I have put together booking pace trends for a couple different demographics, right? So let's take a look at this one. These numbers are just represented here in a graph, and we have everything from 12 weeks out to DOA, which stands for date of arrival. And we see that leisure travel, the percentage of reservations made, this is just in general, I measured this year after year after year, and find out that 12 and 10 weeks out is probably how far out our leisure travel is made. So depending if we're going into a time period that is lower, I can probably say, you know what, most people are going to make, remember that date of arrival way at the end, that is the percentage of people who just show up on that day looking for a room. Most people book 10 to 12 weeks out. In that case, my prices will be highest 10 to 12 weeks out, right? Well, about 4 weeks out, I will drop my prices to rock bottom, but then I'll raise them a little bit 2 weeks out because I can see that's how popular it is for people to purchase for that last date. That's the date of arrival. That makes sense? And then that's for leisure travel. If I look at another type of travel, corporate travel usually makes really almost all their reservations are made about a month out. So if I want to get, pardon me, take a sip of coffee, lukewarm McDonald's coffee. It is not my favorite beverage, but I was late today. So it does the job. It did what it was supposed to do. We take a look here, right? Now remember, this is all for the same date of arrival, right? We just have different demographics behaving in different ways. So if you are looking for leisure travel, they're going to, or we will sell the leisure traveler, and we'll create a discount. It'll say weekend getaway or vacation such and such, or it will be placed in an area where leisure travelers are looking to buy room nights. 10 to 12 weeks, that's when the highest rates are going to be. But here, for corporate travel, we're going to raise our prices just 1 month out compared to, say, 12 weeks out. Because 12 weeks out, we're going to reward you for booking earlier, because we would like our rooms booked earlier, so we have a better idea of what we need forecast-wise. But the highest rates for corporate travelers are going to be set 4 weeks out, because we've looked in the past and we see that's when most corporate travel is booked. So whenever it's booked most of the time is when you are most likely, or we, I guess, as the hotel are most likely to raise our prices. Same thing with group travel. Group travel is usually 12 to 10 weeks out as well. Almost nothing 4 to 2 weeks out. So I guess a group travel could get the best discount if they were going to book just 1 month out, but group travel doesn't do this because you have to get so many people collected to do group travel. You get the idea, right? So this is probably the best way to set your revenue management, is to take a look at your different demographics and see their behavior. And when they are most likely to book for this date of arrival in the future, that's when you raise and lower your prices. Now understand that we talked about the idea that you certainly sell a lot of this in-house, but we also sell this idea of OTA. Denise, did we talk about OTA in class? I forget. OTAs. Did we? Anybody? It's okay if you didn't. It's an online travel agency. And we've all used them, right? Hotels.com, Expedia.com, those sorts of things. Know that different demographics typically go to different OTAs to purchase their hotel rooms. So we set it up so we know who's shopping where, and we raise and lower our prices based on where they are shopping. Can you get the same brand product at one store much more cheaply than at another store? Yes. Yeah, right? And that's because we know that different types of shoppers go to different types of stores. And somebody, I don't know any brand names. What, Nike? Yes, Nike is much less expensive at one store than at another store. Even though they are the exact same shoes made by the exact same company, we know that different demographics are only willing to purchase Nike for so much. So that's how much Nike charges that place to get it. Can you buy Nike at a Walmart? No, I don't know. But if you did, it'd be cheap. But you get the idea, right? And we do the same thing here, right? Different demographics. Look for the hotel rooms at different sites. So different sites might have a lower price for the exact same room night. And we, as the hotel, are selling our product just like Nike sells its products for different prices, possibly, to these different outlets. And that's the deal. Okay, because we know different demographics want Nike, but they're willing to spend more or less depending on where they buy them. By the way, if you are an American, and I guess everybody in this class is an American this year, you are often quoted more on websites, on Amazon or travel sites or all sorts of things, because they know that Americans overall have more disposable income. So many people say what you do if you want to get quoted better prices for travel, go to a, what's that called when nobody can track it? Incognito. Go to an incognito site where there are no cookies or anything of that nature. And some people even say, set your GPS or whatever to another less revenue-rich country, and you will actually be quoted different prices. Say that you are going to travel to Europe, but while you're in Europe, you are going to travel from one European country to another European country. You're not originating or ending in the United States. You're there, and you're going to fly from Hungary to Italy. If you're an American, meaning if your computer, whatever that's called, IPS, is located in the United States, and you say, how much is it for this flight from Hungary to Italy? It will quote you more because they're like, oh, that's an American, they're rich, they have more money to spend. If you re-originate and say that you live in Hungary, which is not a wealthy country, and look for the same airline flight, you will be quoted a lower price because you are, in fact, pretending to be a different demographic. So this happens all the time, but we do it within the hospitality industry itself. We simply charge some demographics higher price than others, and in this case, it's not about the demographic of how much we think they're going to spend, though in a way it is. This is based solely on the idea of when they are likely going to make their purchase. And we have tracked what the most popular time, in this case, 4 weeks out for a corporate travel. 4 weeks out, that's when most corporate travel is being booked. By out, I mean, you know, the horizon between today and the date of arrival. That's when they're going to be willing to pay the most, because that's when they need to get this corporate travel booked. That's when we have them over a barrel. That's when we raise our prices. That makes sense? That's essentially revenue management. But it's not just raising and lowering prices because it's Christmas or not Christmas. It's raising and lowering prices for any future date based on the demographic and how likely they will be to be purchasing that date during this time period. And different demographics will pay different prices on the exact same day, purchasing for the exact same future day, because we know that different demographics have different behaviors. And if you're not doing that in any business, then you're not making as much money as you potentially could. So I suggest that you bring this idea over to AnyTravel at all. Great. And we talked about some other things, obviously. We eliminate discounted prices during high times. We add discounted pricing categories during low times. Real quick, I just wanted to remind us about the idea of minimum stay. Minimum stay is specifically if there are certain nights that are like, I could sell 200% occupancy if I had to, then I make people stay either a couple days before or a couple days after if they want to stay that night. During certain time periods in Lake Placid, it's up to 5-night minimum stay. I only want to be there for 2 nights, but because I have the opportunity to make you purchase more rooms in order to have the privilege of staying those 2 nights in the middle, I might say you have to stay 5 nights total. I don't care where, but if you want these 2 nights, you have to buy 3 other nights as well. It is a classic revenue management technique, and it makes up for all those nights where we don't sell rooms and we still have to pay our fixed costs. Yeah. We might have no arrival dates. If I want you to definitely stay more than 1 night, and I know that, say, Saturday night is the night everybody wants to stay, basically what I can say is nobody can arrive on Saturday. So what this makes you do is have everybody arrive on Thursday or Friday in order to stay Saturday. It's another way of doing the minimum stay. No arrival on the day that we know everybody wants to. Typically that's for, like, there's a 1-day special event where everybody wants to stay over for 1 night. Oh, I don't know, Denise, is there a like a band or something that you would, a concert that you'd be like, I want to see that so bad that I would be willing to spend money on the hotel room for an extra night in order to be in town to see that band that night?
Yes.
Who or what? Yeah, just name one.
Chris Brown.
What is it?
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown, you say? Chris Brown. Chris Brown says staying on Saturday night. Lots of other people feel the same way you do. They go, okay, Saturday night, but you can get a hotel room, but you can't arrive on Saturday night. You're like, I'll come in Friday night so I can have a room for Saturday night so I can see Chris Brown, right? Perfect. Classic example. Usually 1-night events that we can make people stay otherwise. This minimum night stay is when there are multiple nights that people need to stay. We add even more on for those. PMS is a property management system. It tells us what has happened in the past overall. Come on, this should tell me one more thing. Yes, a star market report. This is an important thing. Other industries have the same idea as a star market report. Remember, I have said in the past that we are comparing ourselves to a standard, and one of those standards is our comp set, short for competitive set, those people with whom we are most likely competing, right? Like, I don't know, you may or may not know Lake Placid very well, but if you know, there are different levels of hotel there. The Mirror Lake Inn doesn't really care what the Quality Inn is doing. They're not in the same competitive set, right? Mirror Lake Inn is sort of high end up here. Quality Inn is perfectly fine. This is 4.5 stars. This is 3 stars. They don't really look to each other to see what is going on. But Mirror Lake Inn is definitely looking at what the Lake Placid Lodge is doing. Both 4.5, 5-star properties. They want to know, how busy are they? What prices are they charging? That sort of thing. I was on the opening team at the Whiteface Lodge in Lake Placid, 5-star resort, real nice property. But when we opened up, there was really no other property like us. So we didn't know whether or not our occupancy was good, whether our average daily rate was good, because we had so many amenities and things that nobody else in Lake Placid did, that we looked around and said, well, how do we know how we're doing compared to other Whiteface Lodge type properties? Because there aren't any around. Star Market Report helped us do that. So let me show you the actual, let me show you the result of a Star Market Report, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, because other industries use the same thing, and I think everybody should. It costs money to use it, so you have to decide whether or not that's something your company wants to do, because it is money. All right, we're not going to go, look, it goes on and on and on and on. We're not going to look at it all together, but we are going to look at one piece of it, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. You guys can see this? Sure you can. Okay, so first of all, we have, so I always tell you, compare yourself to your comp set, to your competitive set, to the people you're in competition with. But Paige, you know as well as I do that you can't call up your competition and say, what was your RevPAR? What was your, you could kind of get an idea of their occupancy. People might tell you, but they're gonna lie, frankly. And you can kind of get an idea of what they're charging for any given night, but not their ADR over a certain time period. But you want to know, am I undercharging or overcharging based on what everybody else is charging? But we can't all get together because that's against the law. Right? It's called the monopoly. We can't, all the hotels can't get together and be like, okay, this is what we're charging everybody. Screw them, right? We can't do that. And we don't really want to give away our secrets because we are in competition. So this is what you do. STAR is Smith Travel Research. And what you do is you buy into this subscription system. You say, tell them on a weekly basis, I'm going to send you this much information about my property. And it's a lot of information, but it's just these KPIs I talked about, key performance indicators. What has been my occupancy this week? What's my ADR this week? What's my check average in my restaurant this week? What's my RevPAR? All these different things. Boom, 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 boom. You send it to them, and then on a weekly basis, you get information back. Your own information plus information from people that you have placed in your competitive set. You take a look at all the properties in your area and you can choose, okay, these 4 properties are the most like mine. They're the ones I really want to know information about. So you take the information, they send it back, they go, here's your information and here's everybody else's. But everybody else's is just listed as Hotel 1, Hotel 2, Hotel 3, Hotel 4, Hotel 5. They gather information from all the hotels and then they make it anonymous and they send it back to everybody. So everybody knows their own information. You can kind of guess the others, but you're never sure. But you know where you are in comparison to everybody else without knowing exactly who they are. If you want to know 10 other hotels, you pay Star Market Research more than if you only want to know 3 or 4 or 5. And if you don't regularly put in your information, then they drop your contract. You see how this would be very beneficial? Because then you can say, God, everybody else is getting a lot more for a room night. It's funny, even in the middle of the woods out of nowhere, it's very, very loud. Everybody else is getting so much more for a room night. Why are my rooms so low price when they don't have to be? Or these people are doing much better or much worse. And you can see here in this example that I have provided you here, that occupancy percentage, ADR, and RevPAR. Look, there is so much information that they can give you, right? And it tells you about the market itself and how prior years have worked. And I'm telling you right now, it is super interesting when you're actually in competition. If anybody's into sports and they're into sports stats, this is basically sports stats for a hotel company. If you're into anything, this just gives you all the details. It's like Dungeons and Dragons for revenue managers. But we can just take a look at this and we know how we're doing compared to other hotels, like occupancy percentage. My occupancy percentage was 89.8 during this period. Do you see? But the comp set average is 90.5, meaning I'm not doing as well as the comp set average. I'm a little bit behind. And we give an index there, and the index says 99.3. The index is basically a grade, right? If I took a test on, if my company took a test on occupancy, I would have gotten a 99.3. Pretty good. 100 means that I'm equal with the best. But what if you were like your ADR, right? See, our ADR is a little bit more. My property is 234. The average comp set ADR is 229. My index is 102. If 100 means that I'm average, I'm the same as everybody else. So this basically means I'm a little bit lower occupancy, but I'm a little bit higher ADR. And it equals that I'm a little bit better RevPAR, meaning I'm a little bit better at selling the most rooms at the highest price. Index of 100 means I'm equal with my comp set. Overall, these are overall numbers. Remember, they also set me up one by one against each member of the comp set. Does this make sense? And do you see how important this is to use, or a company like Smith Travel Research, for whatever? You can use it in retail, you can use it in service-based companies. All sorts of companies have this kind of company. Whoever thought of Smith Travel Research is super smart, because all they do is take everybody's information, make it anonymous, and send it back out. It's just they sell information by taking it, making it anonymous, and sending it back to you. So you know where you are in your competitive set without having to share information with other individual properties or companies. Know this because it's important that you understand how this works and the importance of it. Just let me tell you, just let me say that. Come on. So those were just a couple of things I wanted to catch you up on there. Yeah, there we go. And then other techniques we talked about real quick, and the ones I want you to be aware of is pricing per segment. We just talked about that. A segment is the same thing as a demographic. Different types of guests are going to be quoted different prices during different times, because we know that's when they are most likely to buy. When you're most likely to buy, you're most likely to get charged or quoted a higher price. If you go into a car dealership and ever act excited about buying a car, they will charge you more than if you can figure out a way to not look like you don't give a shit about it. It's very difficult. And they have all sorts of ways to see whether or not you're willing to buy a car that day or not. So you have to go and be like, no, it's just, well, you know, I always say, oh, somebody has an appointment and I'm just driving around looking for something to do. But plan on spending the whole day there, because you got to wait it out. You got to wait it out. They will make you wait hours until you get to the point where they're down to whatever they think the lowest price is. So different types of people. Oh, and by the way, it's still the same old thing that if you're a woman and you go into a car dealership, they're still going to tell you about the color of the car and think that makes sense to you. And guess what? It very well might. I don't know what different people have, but there's still that stereotype. And that's the world. So just know going in that you have to be more blasé, and you can't even give a hint that you don't know what you're doing, which is tough because most people don't know what they're doing when it comes to the car, male or female. And if you're younger, you're screwed. If you're younger and female, tough. At least bring another woman with you so you can together be like, look,
Yeah, it's so
we're going to talk about this too, you know, I'm not just sitting here all helpless. You got to trick the salesman.
Yeah.
Last time I bought a car, I went right in and I just told the salesman, I go, look, kid, because he's young. I go, I'm way older than you. I've been through this so many more times than you have. I know everything you're doing. I point and I say, you have a picture of you and your wife and kid on the desk, so I'll feel sorry for you. Over here, you have this sort of thing. I noticed that your chair is a little bit higher than the chair I'm going to sit in. Well, I'm a significantly tight. I was trying to goof around. And of course, you know, I come off as an a-hole when I try to goof around because that's, I might be an a-hole. Yeah, I hate the idea of it. But you have to trick the salesman sometimes. Just know that to be true. So packaging. Sometimes I put different items together and I give people a deal because they're buying more than one thing all at one time, but it ensures that I'm going to sell that other thing. Meaning, if you make a reservation for a hotel room, if you also book a spa item, right, a spa service at this time, and you sign up for a bed and breakfast package, you are going to pay less than if you bought those three things separately at different time periods. I like it because I'm pre-selling things and I know exactly what's going to happen when you're at the hotel, and I helps you with staffing and inventory and all that sort of stuff. You get a little bit of a deal. If those three departments are each being sold at one time, rooms, this is important, rooms is always the one that makes a little less money. If there are three items in a package, two of those typically make full price, and then the last one that gets a little less revenue is rooms. And that's because the margin, the difference between how much it is to clean a room or turn over a room and how much I get paid for a room is wide, huge margin on rooms compared to other items, right? So that one I can afford to not make as much revenue and I'm still gonna make a nice contribution margin. That should make sense to everybody, right? Out of everything I sell in a hotel, the widest profit margin, the gross margin is widest on rooms. So rooms is where I can take a hit when I'm trying to give somebody a discount on multiple items like a package. Just know that to be true. Upselling, we talked about it before. If I can get somebody to spend a little bit more right now, they're in the mood to purchase, right? They're buying a room. This is when I can sell them a little bit of a nicer room. This is when I can, and remember, a really nice room and a just kind of nice room costs me almost exactly to the penny the same to clean. So think about the margin I'm building, right? When the cleaning almost becomes a fixed cost. It costs me $32 to clean a room. If I get $132 for that room, that's $100 profit margin. If I get, if it's a $150 room, remember, it still only cost me $32 to sell that room, to clean that room. So if I'm making more money for that same $32 cost, obviously wider margin, I'm happier. Can I possibly move somebody from a queen room, which means a room with two queens, to a king sofa room for $30 more if I can? That's $30 more in absolute profit because my costs remain the same. Upselling makes more money, but it also automatically makes more profit. Ooh, review management. I'm not going to go into that. That means how do you manage Yelp, TripAdvisor, those sorts of things, those kind of reviews. We'll revisit that in a semester if we have time. Super important because people check that before they check other things about your spot overall. We went through an actual example here. Remember where it was quite easy. We raised and lowered prices as we got closer to the DOA, the date of arrival. 10/20. One more concept here with a very simple formula. Let's read that. Flow through. Flow through is, lower your voice. Flow through is the ability of a hotel to convert increased revenue dollars to increased gross operating profit dollars. It's the ability of a hotel, or really any property, to convert increased revenue dollars to increased gross operating profit dollars. And remember, your gross operating profit is your total revenue less, meaning subtract, the expenses that are considered directly controllable by management. Those things that managers are able to control. That means not bank interest, that doesn't mean rent, it doesn't mean your mortgage payment, doesn't mean your depreciation, it means those day-to-day expenses that you can figure your managers are following for you, right? We know that from an income statement. So let's take a look here. This, we're gonna sail through because I know you know. Fixed costs, you can name all sorts of fixed costs with the rooms division. We know that some things don't go up and down. The manager's salary doesn't go up and down. The subscription costs we have for our revenue, our reservation system doesn't go up and down. They stay the same regardless for our rooms division. Then there are variable costs. Our housekeeping payroll is obviously variable, right? Our front desk payroll to a degree is variable. The amount we spend on cleaning supplies and laundry detergent stuff is variable. It goes up and down based on the amount of the volume of business, I should say, we have. Well, here's the deal. This is the concept. Let's see if we can let this one sink in. If the rooms division ends up with gross operating profit, meaning after we pay for all our controllable expenses, if we have some money left over, some gross operating profit, then we can assume that the rooms division, they made enough revenue to pay for all the fixed costs and all the variable costs and have a little bit of money left over, right? Gross operating, that's where the word profit comes in. But say that they made 50,000 more next year than they did the prior year, right? So we made all the money, we made as much money as we did last year, but this year we made even more, $50,000 more. The assumption is that that new 50,000, when I say new money, you know what I mean additional money we made this year over last year, and assuming that prices didn't go out of whack, well, we know that of that $50,000, the new money, the additional money this year that we made, remember we made all that, as much money as we did last year plus 50,000 more. Of that 50,000, some of it will get eaten up by variable costs. We know that our payroll is probably going to eat up 28% of that $50,000 because we see that every time I make $1 in revenue, 28 cents of it goes to pay for payroll, and 13% of it goes to pay for utility costs, and 3% of it goes to pay for marketing. But how about my fixed costs? How much of that $50,000 is going to go to pay for fixed costs? Here's the idea of flow through. None of it. Because fixed costs have already been paid with, if last year, let's say last year I made $250,000, right? And I paid for all my variable costs, I paid for all my fixed costs, and I had a little bit left over. This year I made that $250,000 plus $50,000 more. What paid for fixed costs this year? The original $250,000 already paid for my fixed costs, just like it did last year. So this new $50,000, yeah, it creates new variable costs because every time I have another guest, they have to, I pay more labor, I pay more this, I pay more that. But none of that $50,000 has to go pay for fixed costs because that's already been taken care of by that $250,000 I made. Not last year, but you know what I mean. I made it this year, and I know that $250,000 takes care of all the fixed costs. So this extra money, this additional money I made this year, unless I screw it up, should go a lot further than the money I made last year. I have new money that has fewer costs associated with it. Does that make sense? Yeah? It's a weird idea. So I know that I should be able to keep more of this $50,000, this additional money I made this year as compared to last year, right down to the bottom line, because it's easier to hold on to because it doesn't have any fixed costs associated with it. Those have already been paid this year. The first $250,000 I made this year covered all those variable costs plus all the fixed costs. And then this year I made even more, this $50,000. Well, how much of this additional $50,000 That first 250,000 I made this year already paid for all that. So these additional ones that I made over the prior year should turn into profit more easily. This is just a simple formula that says how well or how efficiently did I use that new money? And the idea is that new money over last year, if I ran a profit last year, additional money this year, I should be able to keep at least 50% of it directly to the profit line. If I'm not doing that, then I effed up. And basically that means that I wasted that new money by not watching it closely, and it all got eaten up by stupid variable costs that I wasn't following. Remember, those variable costs can creep up on us, right? As we get busier, our variable costs can get out of whack. I was really efficient with my labor, but then all of a sudden I got busier this year and suddenly I'm giving everybody overtime because I messed up, because I didn't forecast properly. And now everybody is every week getting 20 or 30 hours time and a half. Well, I'm giving away money essentially, right? Well, that's going to eat away at that money. But if I can keep my variable costs in check, at least 50% of that new money should go right to the bottom line. Let's take a look, and that's basically the question I'm asking. Let's take a look at an actual example of that. I gotta go back to this. Can you imagine? By the way, that's my formula for flow through. My gross operating profit this year minus my gross operating profit last year, right? Those things are in a parentheses, divided by my total revenue this year minus my total revenue last year. And those are in parentheses. See the numbers I have there? They are from the example I'm going to show you. I just want to show you on a, I think it's the consolidated income statement. And that's where those numbers will be on this consolidated income statement. Some people are writing these in their notebooks, so I'm just waiting for that. Meaning, if my gross operating profit this year was $627,990 and my gross operating profit last year was $519,940, gross operating profit is the amount I have left over once I've taken my revenue and removed all the expenses that I feel are controllable by my managers, what we call controllable expenses. Then my difference between those two would be $108,050, and the difference between my revenue last year and this year would be $174,300. And it says this number, this flow-through number is 61.9%. That means nothing unless I understand that the standard is at least 50%, at least 50%. So if it's over 50%, it means that I'm efficiently using my new additional money. The additional money I made this year over last year. Because if I could make a profit last year at this much money, then this new money should stretch even further. I should make even more of this revenue into bottom line profit. And this says, yeah, you did. In fact, 61.9% of the additional money you made this year over last year, just numbers wise, went right to profit. And that's a lot new money. It means that you were able to bring in new money and not, I was going to say fritter. Is that a word? Fritter it away. All right. So let's take a look at the actual example I used. Those are the numbers that we used for it. This is a multi-departmental hotel. This should look relatively familiar. This is the total revenue I made in the hotel. Hopefully those are the numbers that I used on that example, are they? Or maybe I'm asking you to use a new, do it again, meaning use these as new numbers. These are not the numbers I used in the example on the page, are they, or are they not? You should have just written them down. Do these match the ones that I?
Oh, I don't.
No. Then let's do this one too, right? So what's the formula? What's the formula? Gross operating profit this year minus gross operating profit last year. So let's do this. Look at the screen or your own screen, and we'll move down from revenue because we know revenue is the denominator. But by the way, I hope this looks familiar, that each department, right, makes some revenue, pays for its own expenses, and has departmental income. Yes, this feels right. And we know that that departmental income, this line item, is sort of contributed, because that's also called contributory income, is contributed to the administrative feature of the hotel to pay for undistributed expenses. So if we go down here, this is all my departmental income added together. And I use it to pay for all these undistributed expenses, and then I get to a gross operating profit. Anything below the gross operating profit line is not anything of the management's concern. That is for owners, key executives, those people who own and operate the hotel. But my day-to-day managers only have to worry about anything north of gross operating profit. Cool? So you're telling me that my formula is equals gross operating profit this year minus gross operating profit last year, correct? Great. Which one is this year, the left or the right column? Huh?
Just the left one.
The left one, thank you. So it's this minus this, pretty easy, right? The formula is easy. And then that's the numerator, and then the denominator equals revenue this year. I'm gonna put a thing here. Revenue this year minus revenue last year. Make sense to everybody? Well, that doesn't make sense. It's just the truth. And I'm going to make them both. I'm going to put them both in the same dollar amount. And by that, I mean I'm going to take out the actual dollar. I'm just going to turn them into general numbers. I want these in general number form. General number form. And it is this number, which is my GOP difference divided by my revenue difference. This one's in dollar sign. I should have set my formulas earlier, because that's what I tell you to do. There you go. What is that in percentage? 30%. What was my minimum floor for feeling happy about this number? 50%. What do we know about this property then? They made more. Did they make more money this year than last year? Yeah. In fact, $615,000 more this year than last year. And yet only 30% of that, went right to the gross operating profit line, when theory tells us, because if they would have been efficient in using this additional money this year, that a full 50% of that should have moved directly to the gross operating profit line. But in this case, only 30%. And I am guessing that they got so busy that they started getting messy in their management. They started having to use a lot of overtime. They purchased their individual product at higher prices because they didn't take advantage of volume discount. Have you ever been in a grocery store in a town like Lake Placid? This doesn't happen in most towns, but in Lake Placid, often you'll see somebody dressed in their chef whites buying groceries. Did you ever see that? That's because the restaurant they work at effed up and didn't purchase enough product for the restaurant. I've seen them buying things like meat, a whole shopping cart full of chicken breasts, because they ran out of chicken breasts at the restaurant. Does anybody purchase actual groceries? Like, do you know how much like boneless chicken breast costs at a store per pound? It's okay. I usually don't expect college people to know. I don't know either because we're out to dinner like nine times a week. But say it's $5.99 a pound for chicken breasts. A hotel probably gets it for $2.69 a pound, right? So you can see where I can waste this money very easily because I've gotten much busier and I'm not using all the advantages of running a commercial property. I pay less for every single product in the restaurant. I can, if I manage properly, I don't have to pay overtime, and yet these people are producing so much more work. Or I can mess up along the way, and this new money that I worked so hard, we worked very hard to make $615,000 more this year, but it was wasted. 50% of it should have been able to go right to the bottom line. So this tells me whether or not I am working less efficiently as I became a higher volume property. That at least conceptually makes sense. This is just a nice way to double check it. The formula is easy. The formula is easy. And if you at least know that this should be at 50%, if it's less than 50%, I know that I should be looking at each individual cost line and say, where did I mess up compared to the prior year? Which of these are going up percentage-wise? Where is each variable cost? Where is each variable cost eating away more at this new money than it did at the old money? All right. I take a look at each line item and see where the problem lies. It's almost always in labor or cost of goods sold. Remember that. It's almost always. If you want to look at for anything in a hotel or a restaurant, start with cost of goods sold and labor. And in fact, retail is the same way. Service-based organizations, not as much, because they don't have a cost of goods sold. But this should be at least 50% if you are a property that is working efficiently as you grow, because it's measuring new money, additional money from the prior year. I just did that very teachery thing where you slow down as you end a sentence. Do you notice that teachers do it all the time? And it measures whether or not you're working efficiently from the prior year. I hated it when teachers did that. And here I am doing it. Well, I guess I retired. All right, so we get it, right? And I ask questions, why might the new money slip through the cracks? We got it. Mostly it's cost of goods sold. I'm not taking advantage of volume discount because I'm buying last minute at regular retail pricing. Bad. And when it's over 50%, it reflects efficiency. So good. I'm being very efficient with this new money. Has anybody ever gotten a good raise at work? Like a nice bump? You probably haven't yet, but you will, and it'll feel great. And then after about 6 months, you'll look at your savings account and say, why don't I have any savings? I'm making $10,000 more this year than last year, and yet I'm still just paying my bills. What did you do? You went out to eat all the damn time. You know why? I'm rich, right? It's the same thing as flow through, right? If at $45,000 a year, you were paying all your bills and you had a little bit left in savings every month, and then at 50, so then if you make $55,000 a year, shouldn't you be able to save that entire additional money plus a little bit extra if you live the exact same way, right? But do you? No. You go out to eat. Your fixed costs are the same. It's not like you're like, I'm going to pay more in rent. I'm going to pay more for a car. But no, say that those stay the same. It's your variable costs. And they ate away at that 10 grand like that. Same thing can happen in a hotel. Does that put it in a better perspective? Yeah. Whenever you can put it in your own head, hotels do the same thing. I've got all this extra money to work with. My fixed costs are the same. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to save a lot of this, at least 50% of it. Wait a minute, where's it going? Oh no, I paid it all in time and a half to the housekeeping staff. And I had to beg them to come in. Shoot. And plus, they were being worked so hard that they didn't even do that great a job. So now I got complaints. More business is only good if you can efficiently utilize the additional income, revenue, and that you can provide the same service. That's what flow through is. I forget every year until I use that example, but that's probably the best way to do it. I'm going to back up and remind us of one other thing. When we're talking about making more money, remember, we always have to go back to our base year and check the inflation. Remember? We talked about that? If you make $30,000 5 years ago, no, let's make it 60. If you make $60,000 5 years ago, and this year you're making $63,000, and you're like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm making more money than I did 5 years ago. I bet you were living better 5 years ago on $60,000 than you could on $63,000 this year. You have to go back and check the inflation calculator to see what $60,000 is worth today. And if $60,000 is worth $66,000 today, and you're only making $63,000 today, you're making more revenue, but you're poorer than you were 5 years ago. Inflation calculator, super important. Made me feel better when I was seeing what somebody was getting out of school at Paul Smith. I say, oh, how do people live on that? And then I went back and saw what I made. I made 39 grand, I think, in today's money, because I made like 18.5 when I first graduated. Somebody told me that they got a job for 42, and at first I went, oh, are they gonna be able to pay their bills on 42? Well, I was able to pay it on inflation calculator 38, so they're fine at 42. Now, I lived, you know, everybody used to live together back then. Everybody wants their own apartment now, so that eats away at a lot. And I didn't have a cell phone, and I didn't have my own cable. I didn't have my own, what do you call it? Bill, right? That includes internet and this and that. Everybody has a lot of more individual bills. We used to share a lot of things in the past that made it easier to live. People could do it now too, I guess, if you wanted to live, you know, 3 people in a 3-bedroom apartment, but people seem to want to live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment now. So you're paying more when you do that. But we used to have, gosh, we used to get a 4-bedroom house, have 4 of us live there. The telephone bill was split 4 ways, groceries we split 4 ways, cable we split 4 ways, everything was split 4 ways. Of course, Zach is being knocked out again and again today. So if you want some roommates and that sort of thing, you can live quite inexpensively. And me and 3 friends went in on a car because we wanted this old convertible. So 3 of us just bought the convertible together, and we figured out a way to share it. This is when I lived on Martha's Vineyard. But I wanted a convertible my whole life, and I couldn't afford it myself, so we got it together. That was my car payment. I also bought a boat with those same people. What you need is some good friends that you can go in on something and nobody ever fights about it. That's a tough group to find. Okay, so flow through, we get the idea. Now, we just a reminder, we talked about this before. Hotels do have non-room revenue as well. Please hold, there seems to be something going on over here. This is why we're able to provide some demographics with really low room rates, because we know we're going to make money on them later in their stay. We talked about casinos in Las Vegas and all the ways they have of trapping you in there and making you spend all your money with them. They're very, very smart. Has anybody ever been to a casino?
Yeah.
They've got super ugly carpeting. Have you ever noticed this?
Yeah.
Really ugly, dizzying carpeting. Why do they have such ugly carpeting? If you don't want to look here, where are you going to look? And guess what's up here? Opportunity. Ding, 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 nom, 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 clang, 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 you know, beautiful babies, you know, all this sort of stuff. That was the name of this one set of, what do you call them? One-armed bandits that they don't even have anymore. When I was in college, casinos were deciding whether or not they were going to go to this sort of push-button style slot machine, or keep that one where you pull this lever and it makes the thing go. That's kind of like when you think of a slot machine. And part of a marketing course I took, we were like a social research class that you take here. It's funny, the social research class at Paul Smith's, the thing you study is demographics and see how likely they are to buy green products and, you know, this sort of stuff. When you go to school in Las Vegas, your social research class is, do gamblers prefer push button, or do they, you know, how much do they like the actual pulling of a lever, or do they prefer the buttons? And we had to ask them, you know, like what level of tension they want in that lever, if they want it sort of really light or difficult, and we gave them all these different. Anyway, they wanted to build the perfect slot machine, right? Here, we're trying to save the earth. So in 1989, or I guess there was 1988 in Las Vegas, there was different social research going on than there is now. It was more fun because we got free buffet at the Golden Nugget Hotel. So at any rate, that's kind of social research we were doing back then. But casinos are very, very good at making sure that you're spending as much money as you can, what we call non-room revenue. So the room rates in a city like Las Vegas that has all these other opportunities within the hotel for spending money, typically they have a lot more room to lower their hotel room rates. Anytime that you can sort of be promised that the guest is going to spend more non-room revenue, we're able to lower the price. And that's why groups and volume business typically has lower room rates, because we know we're making up that revenue elsewhere in other departments. And then those other departments can provide contributory income for the hotel, even if it drops. And just know that this is absolutely true. 20 to 50% of your total revenue comes from non-room sources in a full service hotel. But in limited service hotel, only about 5 to 20%, simply because there's less opportunity in spending money outside the room if there are fewer amenities, right? Fewer things to buy. These are some examples, just know them to be true. I got nothing to say about that. You know these things exist in hotels. It's places where we can have extra money if we charge extra to use these amenities. Boom. On Thursday, we are going to start talking less about the income statement and information we get there. And we're going to move on to the balance sheet and talk about the overall general health of a hotel and what we can find there. I don't want to hear any zippers if they're closing, only if they're opening. You probably never stayed at a hostel, because it seems like people don't stay at hostels anymore. But that was the worst thing about staying at a hostel, is you're trying to get a little bit of extra sleep, and the other people sleeping in the bunk room with you are packing up because they got to get an early flight or an early train or whatever. And everything is just zippers, 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 zippers. Because when you pack, do you ever notice when you're packing something, it's unzip, put something in, zip, then you go, oh, I forgot that. Zip, put it in, zip. Notice how many times you zip and unzip something when you are packing, and think, what's that? Well, packing is the worst, right? And it's always like, oh, zip, zip, and knapsacks. We just call them knapsacks or book bags. What do they call them now? Backpack, you call it a backpack? When I was a kid, you called it a book bag. Then you called it a knapsack. I guess they call them backpacks now. It's all zippers. The whole thing is zippers. Okay, so notice that there is something that says revenue management homework here. Let me just open it up so we can look at it real super quick. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, you guys. I want to do this. Please open. There you go. The clicking and the clicking. Okay, good. So it's just a 4-question homework. The first one really simply is having you practice the formulas for ADR, occupancy percentage, and RevPAR, and then some questions. I want you to think about the questions. Some of them are just which is higher, this one or that one. But then another one says, why is this occurring? Or why it might occur. I want you to give a little bit of thought to that, because that's what managerial accounting is figuring out why you would raise and lower your you'd run your hotel with high occupancy, low ADR, or high ADR, low occupancy. What is the benefit of it? That's what this question is about. But much of it is simply these formulas, and these formulas are located in the PowerPoint that we went over last week and today. And then this one is about ADR compared to net ADR. And it's just the difference between regular room rate and your net ADR and your ADR yield. Again, these formulas are in the PowerPoint, but the questions, especially this last question, I want you to think about a bit. This is where you will,